You know, you used to be so quiet. Back when I was young, I usually just go up the hills, run around, and have fun. But still, I was always afraid of the ghosts. They were everywhere. In fact, they were under my house. I'm not saying I'm paranoid, but they were actually real. Their presence was cold. Their very existence had some malice in them. And well, it did affect a lot of people in the village. Most of them didn't return. Most of them actually hung themselves. I saw it personally. And there were those that were affected deeply and torturously. There was a gang, a group of criminals that were in a gambling den. Apparently this guy stole some cash from the gang, and unfortunately he didn't come back. But what was written wasn't his death. It was something more horrendous. The guy was nailed to another tree. A tree with many types of vines all over it, dangling from the top all the way to the bottom. Those were supposed to be sacred. They would foretell a future. And well, yes, it did foretell a future. Unfortunately for this guy, he had wires going through his body, his muscle strand. Blood was all over that tree, and his eyeball was gouged out. The worst part was that his mother had to witness all of it. Yes, the guy wasn't disposed of, but instead left to die on that tree. He didn't die from any other type of wound inflicted on his organs. No, it was more of slowly bleeding out. In agony, any type of movement on his body would torture him painfully. And on that day, I knew that I wouldn't, or I shouldn't go out too far. But still, I was a curious kid. I would run around, and sometimes I would go so far away from my home that I almost got lost. Yes, I almost got lost. I did see a couple of festivals happening near or far away, and well, I was greedy for a bit of cash. I even went to a temple that would throw coins. Those coins were like $1. Each single coin were that valuable. I picked it up, grabbed it, bought some candy, maybe some fruit, and well, at the end of it, before it became night and I got lost, I went home. My parents were worried about me, but for me, it was an exploration. And eventually, out of nowhere, it became dark, and there was a festival happening again. And this festival was, and only, for the moon. For you see, the moon follows us all. You might not know it, but sometimes it will tell you a future, or a misfortune. For me, when I was very young, the moon was so bright in the sky, I could see almost everything. It was almost like it was morning. I ran in a straight line, not knowing where I was going. I fell, and well, the gravel ripped through my palm and left me in pain. I laid on my back and looked at the moon. It was bigger than it was before now. The moon was 100 times its own size, from what I remembered. Maybe it was because I was smaller. But now I realized something. The moon was alive, and the festival was for the moon to fight against the creature that would swallow it. I heard people were talking and whispering in the night, banging and shouting. Music was playing, but I couldn't follow all the way to the music. I didn't know my location. So in the middle of the night, I went home. I didn't know where I was going. It was so dark. It was pit of darkness. I was scared. Hell, I almost peed my pants. But most of all, I knew I almost died that night. Luckily, there was somebody who had a flashlight on, who was able to find me. But if I wasn't so careful, I think I would have walked into a path I wouldn't come back from. I went home that night. Slowly, of course. I was scared of everything, even the very woods that were around me. There were a small group of people in that village. A small amount, which meant that there was nobody who could help me out. I was at the age of 3 by then. So, I was brave. It was more like I just had to go. I just had to go home. Out of desperation and everything around. It felt familiar because at least it was something that was warm around. At least there was something I could lay on without being scared of creatures biting my skin off. And so forth and so on. One night, I saw something very strange. My grandfather went out to take a piss or shit, I don't know which one it was. But he came back in. And then another one of them came back in. I didn't speak, I didn't look. I just wanted to go to sleep immediately. I knew something was very off. Maybe a creature has disguised himself as him. Maybe I was just on a type of drug. But there was no drug in that village. There was only mushrooms that you could find rarely. But it was peaceful, at least. My grandma was near me. And as I slept, I found something strange. My body became smaller, and I ran down a hill full of grass. This was a night, a dream full of night. The grass glowed a little, and right in the middle of the grass field was a figure taller than me, maybe 10 feet tall, as I was a young boy. He had a question to ask. I don't remember how it went, but he asked. Maybe my interpretation was this: how long are you going to be in this body? And then he held out 2 items for his left and his right. His left hand held some type of green object. Wait, no, it was more of a blue object. Like a ball. A small little ball. And then on his right was a purple cube. I don't know what the hell it was, but I chose the purple cube. And I went down somewhere else with a couple of other kids. They were near me, but to be honest, I don't even know any of them. They definitely didn't have a face. But in the dream, you are unaware of everything until you wake up one day and realize, wow, it was just a dream all along. I went down to a river, glowing green. There was glowing crabs that were making me very hungry. Being a village kid, I was always hungry. Not super hungry enough to eat anything raw, but for this occasion, I had to. I knew I couldn't return home without... Well, I knew I couldn't return with no crabs, so I just decided to eat them. And I did eat them. I ate so many. And when I woke up, in the middle of the night, I felt full. I felt like I ate too much, and I almost threw up, but I held it back. At the end of it, I went to sleep again. But this time there was no funky feeling, except for being full. I woke up the next day and everything was normal. I had hoped that at least I could forget that dream. I knew something terrible was happening, but I don't know what it was. And that was it. That was the first part. There's more to come. Anyways, thanks for listening to my story. I decided to talk after my cognition had come back and I was able to have this voice. But it won't change. I'm unfortunately stuck in a loop. Good night.